telemarketing started really, I'm going to go to the next slide here. You'll see Ducharme Macmillan. It started with a phone call back in 1982. My career goes over 30 years. I'm going to make it last about 10 minutes for you, so we're going to do real highlights. And it really, the first thing was a phone call, which started a whole career of telemarketing, which is sort of ironic. And it was a phone call meant for my husband. He was hired by a firm called Ducharme Macmillan out of the Midwest in Fort Wayne, Indiana, to develop the East Coast. And what he would do is, like any salesperson, he would go in and he'd spend a week on the phone making appointments, and the following week he'd be out on the road visiting his clients. And one of the weeks that he was on the road visiting the clients, my degree is in education. I was a school teacher, and I was an elementary school teacher, a special ed teacher. And so it was summer and I was off. He called and said, "Just stop in the office and pick something up for me." I said, "Sure." So I ran in and the phone was ringing, and I thought, should I answer this? And of course I did. And it was a gentleman who had read a flyer about his company and said that he needed to meet with someone to help him with an appeal that was happening the following week. And I said, "Great, he'll be delighted, let's make it." And I'm talking to the man, and we're having a great conversation. And at the end, I make a commitment for Bob to meet him and find out it's in Syracuse. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, he's going to kill me. But I didn't want to disappoint the man on the phone. So what I did is, when I hung up, I thought, if he has an appeal in Syracuse going on this week, there's got to be other people that have the same problem. So I picked up the manufacturer's guide, started calling companies in Syracuse, and when my husband came home, I said, "Here's 3 appointments, you're going back next week." And he was delighted. I thought he'd be upset. He was thrilled. He goes, "I hate making the appointments." So it was summer. I started spending 1 or 2 days a week in the office making him his appointments. And it took about 4 months before the company said, "Bob, what's happening? You're a 4 salesman, you're the top salesperson, what are you doing?" He goes, "My wife's making me appointments a couple days a week, so now I'm out on the road every week." So they said, "Can she teach someone else to do that?" So what we did is we hired an assistant to each of the salespeople, and they became their telemarketers. It took about 3 to 4 years, and we took the company from $4 million in sales to $16 million in revenues, all through telemarketing. Well, then what happened is their competitor, which was Strategist, said, "Everywhere we go, Ducharme's there first. Why are they there before us?" Plus, they had telemarketing. So Strategist contacted Bob, said, "We would like you to join the firm." And he said, "Well, we're sort of a team now. If we need telemarketing, I can't do it by myself." So we went over to Strategist, and we did the same thing. And we added about $5 million in sales over the next 2 years for them through telemarketing. But at that point, Bob became a partner in the company, and he's running all the salespeople all over the place, and he's getting all the credit. The sales were profits. And here I am, I have a bunch of retired telemarketers here, and I'm an expense thing. But when the salesman went out, they said, "We talked to Al in the office, where's he?" And they're like, "Oh, he makes my appointments." They're like, "Well, we want somebody to make our appointments." So I said, "I think we could have another service here of selling these telemarketing appointments." And they said, "Well, make us a business plan." So to their credit, they did share the plan with their bank. I have to give them that credit. And they showed it to the bank, which at that point was Progress Bank. And they looked at my little 3-page plan about making appointments and selling them for like $35 each. And the bank said, "Listen, we have loan offices that need appointments. We will be your first client." So they said, "We got a client." And I'm like, "Great." So we started doing that for the bank, and we formed the business model of retired executives making appointments for salesmen. It was outbound telemarketing with a book, a desk, a telephone, very simple. And after about 4 months of doing this, from 4 to 6 months, the secretary to the president of the bank called me. Okay, so we'll go to the next page. Okay, that's the interview. So the president calls me, I have no idea. I figured he's either unhappy, maybe he's going to double the budget, give us more, maybe he's going to say it's not working. And I remember this. This is one of the highlights, and I think a turning point in my career, is we met at Cedarbrook Country Club. It was Kirk Wyckoff. I don't know if anyone here knows Kirk Wyckoff. He was the president of Progress and Progress Financial Group. And over lunch, he said to me, Claudia, what part does technology play in telemarketing? Well, back then, it wasn't so much at that point. But I said, well, it's 80%. And he said to me, that's the right answer. We want to set you up in your own business. And I'm like, okay. So don't forget, this is my husband's bank at that point. And they're going to have to go back and tell them, we're going to take Claudia, we're going to set her up. Basically, they started a new division of the Progress Financial Holding Group called Procall Teleservices. They outsourced their tele-platform to us. Every time a client walked in the door with a business plan, they said, oh, we have telemarketing, go see Claudia, marketing and sales, your budget. It became turnkey, and we did great. Basically, for 3 years, it was a home run. I mean, I had clients, prospects. I had the banks, accounting firm, lawyers. I had their switch for the technology. So I didn't really have to do anything. I was like, all of a sudden, I had a $5 million business. It was fabulous at the end of 3 years. The bank then was approached to be purchased by Fleet and Bank of America, and teleservices was no longer a core business. So they said to me, Claudia, we got to do something. Do you want to be sold? Do you want to be rolled up, taken public? I said, no, let's sell. Let's sell. So they said, okay, find a buyer. So I looked up brokers for telemarketing in one of the magazines, found a great guy, John Weichert. He brought in the next 90 days, brought in about 5 potential buyers, and we sold the company for $5 million that had no debt. We sold it to a publishing company on the West Coast and wanted a presence on the East Coast. So I thought, okay, this is fine, that was good. I stayed a year, took some time off, and everybody says you could do it once. Wasn't so sure I was going to go and attempt to do it again. But I was approached by some of the people that were on the board of the bank at that time, and they said to me, why don't you try to do it again? So with Procall, what we did do to change the model, just so you know, is we were always outbound lead generation for salespeople. During my term at Procall, what we did is I went out to look at some extra space to expand, and I saw some logos on the wall, like Calvin Klein, Dutch Gardens. And I said, what do you do with them? And they said, oh, we have some inbound business, but we really don't do much with it. So I said, can I buy that portfolio of inbound business? Because I'd like to add inbound. And right now we're at outbound. I want inbound. And they said, sure, it's $400,000. I talked to the bank. I said, let's buy this so we can have inbound and outbound and become a real service bureau. We took that, we bought the portfolio, and we turned it into $1 million in 6 months by going out and visiting them, letting them know the new focus that was going to be on their business. So at that point, we had added that, and I did learn a little bit about technology. I went from Merlin switches to Novatel switches to, we had the buyer behind the wall. One of the mistakes I made is I would buy a switch for 50 seats, outgrow it, have to go buy another switch for 100 seats, outgrow it, buy another switch. So I was spending the money on switches instead of buying one that would grow. But I was learning at that point. So that was Procall. Okay, then as I said, the bank investors talked me into, a couple of them said, we'll back you if you want to do it again. So I said, okay. So in 2002, I decided I'm going to start corporate call center. But this was really from scratch. No bank behind me anymore. So I needed to build everything myself. So what I did is, this is key, and I think as any entrepreneur here starting their own business, this is really what helped me make success in my next two businesses, is my investor network. I knew I needed buildings. With telemarketing, you need a lot of space. So one of my investors was a realtor that owned buildings. Another one was a banker that could get my loans approved. Another one was a recruiter that could get me the people when somebody wanted 50 people. Let's see, another was just a mentor that would go to all my problems. But each person understood my business, and they either needed it for their business, or they had clients that needed it, and they had skin in the game. So if they were my managing board, and they were an integral part of my business. But when someone came to me and said, Claudia, can you put 100 seats in 3 months, I could go to my guy on real estate and say, where are we going to do this? I could get my recruiter person and say, I need 100 people in 3 months. So even though it wasn't their business, they had their own successful business, they were critical to mine, and they became my managing board. Then in 2000, so we started that in 2002. First year we did about 700,000. The next year we did like $1.5 million. Then we went to like 4 million. And then all of a sudden, in 2005, Blue Cross came to me and they said, do you have any licensed agents, insurance agents? And I said, no, but we could probably find a few. You know, I have a good recruiter who can find a few. They said, no, Clay, we want 100. I said, oh, let me talk to my board of advisors and see if we can get 100. So I went back. That meant we needed new space and a big investment in people. And I knew nothing about insurance and licensed agents. So, of course, I go back to the investors, and they said, yeah, do it. So we borrowed $1.5 million from the bank. They co-signed the loans. And we opened a new space, and what we did was we sent 300 retired professionals to school to get their insurance license. And out of that, about 130 passed the test. And we opened up with 100 on the phone for Blue Cross in about 90 days. It was amazing. So that year, then Blue Cross referred us to Highmark, who referred us to Anthem Wellpoint. And so we went from 4 million in 2005, that by 2007, I was doing $17 million in business. It was exciting. In between there, I did do a critical step. I hired the CIO from CVS Pharmacies, because I needed technology. And he was able to do everything, like build the infrastructure and handle all that, talk to the IT at the other departments. So hired good staff, and he was fabulous. So he got added to my investor network because I really needed a key technology person there. And he was able to buy 20% of the company, come in, and he was part of that growth from 4 million to 17 million. So we perfected the business model by creating our own agents with license, and we became known as a credentialed call center in the industry. So we were licensed, credentialed, a little bit different than our competitors then, and we were the ones they came to for insurance. So insurance became my niche. We were approached by a private equity firm, I guess in 2007. We were approached by a private equity firm who offered me $17 million, and we turned it down. And then in 2008, Highmark and Blue Cross were talking about a merger, and our sales went from 17 to 14, and I started to panic. Shouldn't have done that. And I accepted a $10 million offer, which was good for my investors. Investors that invested $60,000 got back $2 million. They were happy, but I shouldn't have panicked. But it was a learning lesson, okay? So that's corporate call. We sold it for $10 million. Investors were happy. And I took a couple of years off, went on a cruise, worked with lawyers, had a non-compete, and we're up to my current company, CompanyVoice. And here I raised $1.5 million, some of the same investors. We expanded the services because of my non-compete. Not only do we do insurance now, we do government. We took the cloud technology, so we've expanded the technology, went to the cloud. We've added compliance and certifications, and we're on target to sell for 20 million by 2018. So basically, that's a 30-year career in 15 minutes. The three takeaways I would say is the change in technology. We had to keep up with that or I would have been left behind. The investor network, which were core, and my credential, the agent model. Those three things made us different, and people are willing to pay for that. Okay, the question everybody asks me is, would telemarketing work for your firm? And I tell them, if your competition is doing it, like Ducharme Strategist, you got to do it. Are they going to get there first? So you got to do it. Might not be a home run, but just do it. If you have a product that is not being used heavily in the telemarketing industry, then it's a home run, because you're going to get there first. Okay? Thank you.
Claudia, can you take some questions? Brad has a microphone.
You mentioned that you hired retired executives. How important were they versus, people out of college or,
They were great for my model because in telemarketing you have a lot of seasonality, a lot of spikes. So I hired them through the agency and I was able to bring them in for a project and let them go, and it fit their lifestyle. So they could come in and work. It was sort of like the H&R Block of the insurance industry. They work for me for 3 months in insurance, they go to H&R Block for the next 3 months. Or they come in and work 6 months till they hit their Social Security, that type of thing.
Anybody else?
Do you think a computer would ever be able to replace a human in telemarketing?
We are doing some of that now. I think it's a blend of both. We use IVR for many of our upfront messages and to try to save time. My clients pay by the minute, by the hour, and if we could do it in less time, they're happy. So we try to use technology now as much as we can. But I still think people like to opt out for a live person, and we're getting into social media and texting and all that.
Why did you decide to stick with women for this company?
It was something I hadn't done in the other ones, and a lot of the larger vendors like Highmark and Blue Cross have to report their diversity spend, and they would ask me, and they were disappointed that I had never done that step. So that was one of the first steps I did here.
One more?
So for the new technologies you're adapting at your firm, are they developed in-house or are you outsourcing them? Do you want to develop them in-house?
No, we're using like interactive intelligence, the cloud technology that's out there. It comes with predictive dialing, it comes with full-scale reporting, but we also use apps and we use the technology our clients have. We build CRMs, we build applications for them. Adele, our CIO, he was with CBS when they bought the Echo drugstores and built the upfront platforms. So he speaks 5 languages, brilliant.
Hi, Claudia. Just a quick question. So, in terms of connecting the knowledge that someone like you has with other folks that, younger generations that are coming up with ideas, do you have any thoughts in the Philadelphia region about how we connect those generations and the new breed coming up with folks like you that have experience and knowledge and
Well, we always allow tours through our center. We bring in young, students come in. We mentor students. We have interns from the colleges. They actually get credits when they work in our IT department or accounting department. But I'm open to it. Whatever we can do to help.
Great, Claudia. Thanks very much.